All right, it is Sunday, and that means it's time to get some more work done. Usually, that's my designated day to get a couple more hours straight through of some work done. So we're gonna get back to work on this underhood wiring, and then move into the cabin, and then also the tail lights. I'm just taking my time. I hate wiring, so I'm working on it a little bit, and then doing other things in the process. Wiring is not my favorite thing. I've never been shy about saying that. It's not that I'm not good at it. I just don't really care for it. So it's hot. I've got a couple fans about to be turned on, and then we're gonna get to work. Or least thing I hate. Anyway, so pretty much we have all our front lights right here. That's high beam and everything else. Everything under the hood is ram where it's gonna be. This is stuff we are not using because of the sniper, but I was originally going to depin all this stuff, but there's really no point in case I ever decide to go back to carb or run a different setup. I'd like to keep all this stuff just so I don't have to backtrack and do it again. So most likely I'll roll this all up and cap it off and tuck in the fender well just to get it out of the way. It'll hide up in there, and then this is horn, which is the only thing I'm using right there that's coming out of there. Everything else is snake it around and be tucked up in here. These are all headlights. It's set for a ground, and this will be the new ignition power. We're gonna run it, tuck it up here and run it around. Run it down by these cables and cheat it through the frame, so you won't see any wires. There will be no wires up there until I decided to go with the AC stuff, and then we'll tuck all that stuff later on. So everything will be nice and hidden, which is the way I like it. Nice and clean and no wires, so, or at least minimal wires that you can see. So next thing is getting some of this stuff cut in and wired up. We still obviously have, let me grab my flashlight. Still have obviously all this to go in here. I am still deciding on what I want to do for the dash, so I am probably gonna leave all that stuff untouched until I figure it out. We're gonna run the front headlights, get those hooked up, and then we're gonna run the rear tail lights down and get the back tail lights going, and then we will, from there, then hopefully have a decision made about the dash and what we want to do. What I plan on doing is actually not going to work, so I'm probably going to bite the bullet and get the Holley Sniper screen that shows me fuel gauge. The biggest issue, what I was wanting to do, I'll show y'all. Sorry, go back. What I was wanting to do was run a tablet, a Windows tablet, because you can use multiple gauges across the Holley, panel. The only problem is it does not allow for a fuel gauge setup. So the tablet was going to be pushing this space right here. I was going to have somebody, a friend of mine is going to 3D print something for me for it to sit in. Problem with that is there's no fuel gauge. So I didn't want the tablet and another gauge. That kind of defeats the purpose of a clean look. So we are going to get the 7-inch screen, which is about that tall or so, and then angles. Should fit in perfectly. Let me show you so it's a little easier for y'all to understand. This right here is where the speedo sits. So I'm hoping I can modify this to hold that. I may have to cut out some of this right here, but we're going to redo this anyway, so no big deal. And then I can modify it in with the dash pad and 3D printed. I'll have also an area for a radio to go in. So my plan is screen, radio. When it's off, you won't see any of that because it's tucked back in. Where is the gauge? Hold on. And I'll show y'all the gauge cluster so you can get a better idea of what I'm talking about. This is the big clunky gauge cluster. So we're not going to reuse this. So we're going to reuse probably this bottom panel because it has the ignition switch, AC light switch, and wiper switch. We're going to find a way to separate this. So this is the only thing showing in the dash pad. So I'm hoping I can cheat and get away with the screen and a radio. That'll dump a bunch of weight too. Not that I'm worried about weight with this wagon, but this thing is heavy just due to the AM radio mostly. It is massive back here. And then as you can see, all these wires will be gone, minus a few. We're gonna have to keep the connectors and keep the wire ends, such as the light switch, the dimmer switch, or excuse me, the light switch, the HVAC switch, and that I think is about, in the wiper switch. That is about it. Everything else is gonna get gone from here. I have extras of this wiring, but these are actually in good shape, so we will see if the others are in good shape. If not, we will use these connectors. My seat's still sitting here, so I can move around the wagon. I need to wipe this whole list and add new stuff to it, because this was to get ready for power tour. We're obviously done with power tour. We didn't take this car, so we are going to start over and do things the proper way from here on out. So we're going to fix some of the rust and some other stuff. All right, we got the excess stuff tucked up in here and out of the way. Like I said, you will not see it up in that fender. The green is the horn. We're probably going to mount the horns right there. That's where they were stock. Well, they were right here where this coil pack is, but we're going to probably melt them somewhere in here, just to keep them as tucked as possible while also looking good and still able to access them should we need to. Obviously we still have to loom all this under the hood and splice into these connectors that I have that we're going to use. We still got to loom all that, set the grounds, which shouldn't be hard, and that's pretty much it for the front. Then we can start working on the rear and running the rear. And then we can start working on the hard stuff behind the dash. Hopefully by then I have made up a decision on what I'm gonna do. Well, I already pretty much know. It's just a matter of executing. All right, we are at a stopping spot today. The front headlights, turn signals, parking lamps. The only thing that's not done under the hood is putting the loom on. From there up, the horn, which I haven't bought a horn or figured out what I want yet, and the ignition switch to the starter from here, which I'm going to run around and down so you won't see it. Basically clean it all up. In here is pretty much done, minus, you know, tying things up and zip tying stuff and kind of putting it where I want. Same thing with over here. I got to finish wire looming a few things, but pretty much you get the idea. You don't see really any wires when you open the hood. It blends in nice and black. This is the only thing I really can't avoid. And that's just mainly because I ran the sniper on this side. There's no room to tuck this up in there. I really just didn't want too much in there. I didn't want to build up a bunch of heat with the wires running all near each other. So that is pretty much it for under the hood, minus a few things I mentioned, which I'm not terribly worried about right now. I've got to wire up the wiper motor, basically, is the only thing I've got to finish out passing through on the other side. Everything else is already in. And then that should take care of the front. I have got to still run those wires to the back, finish up the back, and then we have started behind the dash. Realistically, I'm not going to have much stuff to power on the dash. I am going to go with the smaller screen sniper, the 7-inch or whatever. So I have a fuel gauge. It looks nice and clean. So basically I'll modify this. You will see this screen here, and then I'll have a radio room for over here. A buddy of mine's going to help me 3D print something. So I'm going to modify this to work. So when the vehicle's actually off, it'll just look dark and black right there. You won't see anything until I key on. Obviously, we'll keep the bottom section of which has the ignition switch, light switch, and the HVAC's there, but I won't be using that HVAC. If I go aftermarket, I'll do an under dash kit. Let me show you what I'm talking about. I think I've explained it in other videos, but just to make it simpler, all this clunkiness is all these ridiculous amount of wires, and everything in here is just ridiculous. So we'll keep this section down here, basically this wooded fake wood section. So I have my ignition switch here, light switch here, wipers, HVAC, which we won't be using this, but we're going to leave it anyway. We're going to get rid of this top thing. So we'll have to print or 3D print something for the dash to sit here, and then for the radio to sit over here. Not terribly worried about the radio right now. I like listening to the car, but you know, on long trips it is nice to have some kind of radio. And then we will also wire in a circuit. Probably going to take this power window circuit, which we have right here. Don't ever plan on putting power windows in this thing, so we're going to probably run that to the rear window. I'll run that with those bundle of wires back. Use a relay and make that work. So a lot of these wires are overkill, but I would rather have too many wires in case I want to do something in the future and need another circuit. If I want to bag it, run air compressors, whatever, I've got basically room for improvement. So most of these wires are just going to get pinned up. I think I showed y'all in the last video, I was planning on pinning up wires. Let's see, I did not actually finish tucking this. So all this is capped off wires. If I ever want to go back to, if I ever do want to go back to a carbureted engine or a different engine setup and I need coil positive and all that stuff, it's there. It'll be tucked over in this fender where you won't see it with everything else. And everything's capped off there. So it's there should I need it, should I run into issues and I need to go carbureted or run a different setup. I can run a different setup. Basically, it'll just be a matter of rewiring those wires to them. I am going to hook them up behind the dash as far as coil positive and all that stuff. For that, I would need to do that in case I did. So still haven't figured out what I want to do about the steering wheel. It's obviously has its issues. I want to run something, but I just haven't came up with what yet. It's going to get replaced probably for a different, something that looks a little bit better. I just can't stand this wheel, and it's all the way up in my gut on the bench seat. So I want to run something a little bit more low profile, but still has turnability, because obviously I'm not running power steering right now. So then we got to figure out, finish fixing these holes in the floor and all that stuff. So wiring's first, make sure I got everything laid where I want it, and then that speedo cable will essentially be useless now, so I can take that out and actually just fill the hole up in the floor. That's really the only rust is up there by the speedo cable, so I can fix that, patch that, and knock out that. Be done with that, and then fix the underside stuff. Yeah, it's pretty much just going to be a lot of wiring, and again, I'm not a huge fan of wiring, but it's got to get done. So sometimes you just got to suck up and do things that you don't want to do. I've pretty much been doing like 20 minutes at a time. I'll do one headlight, get one side done, go do something else, come back to it. This Yukon that kind of got dropped off has been a good, give me a break from a second, diag some other stuff, and just kind of clear my head. So that's a whole nother video I'll fill you guys in on if I haven't already. And yeah, so pretty much wire up the rear and then get everything behind the dash and pop it back over and hopefully get it running correctly on the Sniper 2 with no voltage issues. And then we will bleed the brakes, put the seat back in, maybe go for a ride. Sounds a lot easier than it is going to be, but we're going to get it done. All right, so we are back where we left off. I need to finish up a few where these pieces come together. I need to finish cleaning that up a little bit. Need to wire this ignition wire, which is about to happen here in just a sec, and I haven't figured out what horn I want, so that wire is going to stay there. And then from there, we're going to finish with the conduit all the way through the firewall. As soon as that's done, we're going to move on to over here behind this door and going backwards toward the taillights, and that's where we're going to keep working towards. Well, as with anything else, I had planned on running the rear lights down this side and then crossing over. The only issue with that is there's some wires that I'm going to actually want on that side. I could pull just those wires out and run those down the other side, but it'd make more sense just to go back and save me some wire and go down the other side. This wire is for the door, basically the open door switches. It was going to hide better in this panel over here, but the benefits just don't outweigh the having to lengthen a few pieces of wire, or several pieces of wire actually. So we're gonna pull that back through, go over the other side, and then back over. So we're doing a little bit of double work, but again, we want to do this once and then be done with it. So that's the goal. This just didn't pan out how I wanted it to. I pulled it all the way to the back and realized my mistake. That's how it goes when you're doing stuff like this. There's no real rhyme or reason. It's just kind of preference, and we're gonna keep going. All right, that wasn't too bad running across and back over. So now we got it running this floor pan, well, that floor channel. We've got to take this panel in here off to be able to access the back side of this to run it properly. I could snake it in without it, but I'd rather it be secure than where it's going to go. So that's the next objective. I had that side off because that's what I was going to do. So that's how I can go back on kind of when I get a chance. It's all kind of just laying right here out of the way. But anyway, that's the next piece of the puzzle, is get this out of the way and then fish it around through there. And then secure all the wiring, and then get back to under here, which we have some of the ignition switch done. We have none of the light switch done. We started on it. We at least cut the wires loose that we're going to use. This wire harness is typical. It's a GM style wiring harness, but then schematics for Ford, as you can see right here. So anyways, no big deal. We're going to continue on. It's just all tedious stuff. I'd like to take my time with it just because it drives me so much crazier than anything else I do. Wiring, for whatever reason, takes way longer. And it's probably just because I dread it and hate it. I'm not bad at it, just find it tedious when I could be doing other things. All right, we have that panel off. As you can see, we already heat and sound deadened this a long time ago. For those of you that have been here for a while, you've already known that I've done that. So we're going to run the wiring. That wiring that's left actually goes into this and goes, I'm not sure that you can see. Yep, there. That is the power window module that controls this back window, and a big pain we're going to have when we get to it. Because the regulator is pretty worn out and everything is pretty much toast. The window is left out. As you can see, this thing's pretty nasty in the rear tailgate area, but we're going to try to salvage it for now. Eventually we'll replace it, but for now that's not the task at hand. We're going to run the rest of the wiring down through there and then down into the tail lights underneath, and then on this side underneath. So that is the next objective. We're going to leave that wiring there for now because it actually looks okay, and it's a huge pain. So if you can see, this right here is the actual where those wires come through, and it would be a booger to get those pulled back through. The wiring looks okay all the way to that point where it was chewed up, so we're going to keep that wiring there. We'll check the circuit and make sure it's not shorted. Other than that, new wires are all coming back here. All right, as you can see, the vehicle is up in the air. It was much easier to work on. Run the wires down low how I wanted to. So we have the driver's side tail lights done and wired up, with the exception of the ground, which will make a ground for that cluster of lights. Make it easier to troubleshoot. I did put power to these. I didn't have a bulb for this one. This one was blown. The other bulb's lit up, so we should be good on power back here. Ground was decent going through them. We still have this section of lights right here, which this will be the tag lights, and then the rest of the right-hand side's over here. I'm going to be about 3 foot short of the wire, which is no big deal. I've got some pieces over there from up front that are actually the same color that I was sure they were too long, so they'll obviously be labeled different, but we'll find a way to label and make them read correctly. That's my fault. How I ran the lights, even with going down this different side, essentially I just kind of wasted a lot of space. But given how the trunk area is set up, I did not want to cross over at any point to try to go straight across. So no big deal. We'll add a few feet to that. and then we'll finish running this over here and up into the taillight housing. As you can see, that one's out, those are hanging. I might have a little extra tail by the time I tuck those up, and then we'll gotta take this light out and we'll get those wired up and then finish in the cab, and that should be done for the wiring, and then just check over everything and pop it off again. So we still gotta finish the exhaust at some point, and also this big hole in the floor probably eventually should get fixed, but we'll continue on. All right, we also are done. I got my light. We are done with over here for now. We're happy with it. I'll pin all that up later. Over here, I've still got to finish some of the conduit and running that up there. I did not finish all the way to the firewall like I said I would. I got busy with the rear. I wanted to get the rear tail light section done. We have this wire over here going to the starter. All those are tucked away from the headers. I'll probably clean up this bundle of wires, which is the alternator and the starter main wires. They're just kind of busy. I don't really like how they're working now. Now that everything else is clean, that sticks out to me, so I'm going to redo that. Still need to wire up the wiper switch, which I've got to figure out where I'm going to run that through on the firewall. Plenty of room, just want to keep everything as tidy as possible. So we are getting there, and unfortunately work is going to come soon tomorrow, so that's going to be a stopping point for tonight. And got some other stuff going on this weekend, and it looks like bad weather, so may or may not get some more work done on this. If not, we'll resume when we can.